There is a sound that every parent knows. It's the sound of chaos. Screaming, laughing, toys crashing against hardwood floors, the thumping of little feet running down the hallway. It is the soundtrack of life. It is the noise of the American dream.
Are you having a disturbance? Are you ill or what?
Yes, I'm ill.
You need an ambulance?
No, I need a police officer.
She drowned her kids because she didn't want them to go to hell.
But on June 20th, 2001, in a suburban house in Clear Lake, Texas, the soundtrack of everyday life stopped. A mother, once the giver of life, now associated with death. As the media sensationalized the incident, the nation watched in horror. Some questioned if she was simply cold-blooded, while others debated if she was the most tragic and mentally disturbed individual the state of Texas had ever seen.
I walked into the room, and I was expecting to find a man on the floor, a body. And I was looking around, saying, what? And I seen this little tiny head. And it was looking right at me. And I thought it was a doll. And I walked over to that little tiny head, and I touched it right here. And I picked up and as I continued to pick up the blanket, was one body after another. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to Clear Lake, Texas. This isn't just any suburb. This is a community of astronauts and engineers. It sits in the shadow of the Johnson Space Center. But inside a modest brick house on Beachcomber Lane, logic had withered and died. It was replaced by a terrifying silent madness that no equation could solve. If this already has you on the edge of your seat, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for more gripping true crime stories. Hit the bell so you never miss an upload. On a Tuesday morning, while the world went about their usual routines, Andrea Yates began a chilling and methodical pursuit of her 5 children: Noah, John, Paul, Luke, and baby Mary. One by one, she didn't use a gun or knife. Instead, she used the water from her own bathtub, the very place where she once comforted them, singing lullabies and soothing their scraped knees. The contrast was haunting. Why was she a cold-blooded monster who viewed her children as an inconvenience? Or was she the 6th victim in that house? A woman crushed by a perfect storm of hormonal psychosis, religious fanaticism, and a medical system that told a woman seeing Satan to think happy thoughts. Today, we are not just telling a crime story. We are performing an autopsy on the American dream. We are going to walk through the valley of the shadow of death with Andrea Yates. We will look at the warning signs that were ignored, the cries for help that were silenced, and the dangerous delusions that turned a loving mother into a woman who took the lives of all 5 of her children. Before we enter the house of horrors, we must understand the people living in it. This wasn't a house of monsters. It was a house of humans. Born in 1964, Houston, Texas. By all metrics, Andrea was a success story. She was the valedictorian of her high school class at Milby High. She wasn't just smart, she was disciplined. She became a registered nurse at the University of Texas School of Nursing. She worked at MD Anderson Cancer Center. Think about the psychology required for that job. It is a profession of extreme care, self-sacrifice, and empathy. Friends described her as introverted, soft-spoken, and incredibly kind. She was a giver, but psychologically, she fit the profile of the perfectionist, someone who derives self-worth from meeting the impossible expectations of others. Rusty Yates was the steady, rational force that balanced Andrea's emotional fragility. When they met in 1989, both were 25 years old. He was outgoing, ambitious, intensely devout, and always seeking a deeper, more demanding form of faith than the mild Sunday services most attended. That search led the couple to Michael Warrenicki, a traveling street preacher who lived in a converted school bus delivering fiery sermons. Warrenicki's teachings were extreme, anti-woman, and frightening. He declared any woman who worked outside the home was a witch or a Jezebel. He insisted that parents alone were responsible for saving their children, and if a child died without being truly born again, the parents' souls would be lost. Over time, Rusty bought Woronieki's tapes and newsletters, bringing these harsh messages into their home. These guilt-laden teachings became the loudest voice in Andrea's already broken mind, convincing her in June 2001 that the only way to save her children was to end their lives while they were still innocent. The story is about 5 real children: Noah, 7 full of life and adventure; John, 5, quiet but always smiling; Paul, 3, full of energy and joy; Luke, 2, the baby; Andrea, loved with fierce tenderness; and Mary, 6 months, the precious little girl who was meant to complete their family. They loved trucks, dirt, and each other, and were the heart of Andrea's world, until the day everything shattered. Andrea and Rusty met in 1989 at the Sunscape Apartments in Houston. They were inseparable. They moved in together, reading the Bible, swimming, exercising. It seemed idyllic. But when they married in 1993, the dynamic shifted. Rusty, influenced by his interpretation of the Bible, believed in a patriarchal family structure. The husband is the head, the wife is the heart and the helper. They made a pact that would seal their fate. They decided to forego contraception entirely. No pills, no condoms. They would have as many children as God provided. This was non-negotiable. Michael Woronieki's teachings went beyond pamphlets. They were a relentless assault on modern life. He would yell at female college students, calling them witches for pursuing education instead of reproduction. Rusty and Andrea absorbed this during campus visits, buying into the idea that only God decides salvation. This vicarious liability doctrine haunted Andrea. If she sinned, her children would inherit eternal punishment. Neighbors noted the family's isolation cut off from materialism, but inside these beliefs amplified Andrea's guilt, turning everyday exhaustion into spiritual failure. Let's analyze this decision. For Andrea, a woman prone to trying to please others, this wasn't just a lifestyle choice, it was a submission. She joked tragically, calling herself Fertile Myrtle. Friends say she laughed when she said it, but was it a real laugh? Or was it the nervous laughter of a woman realizing she had strapped herself into a roller coaster she couldn't get off? Almost immediately, the biological assembly line began. 1994, Noah is born. 1995, John is born. 1997, Paul is born. The house filled with noise, diapers, crying, feeding. But outside the house, a shadow was lengthening. Every time Andrea felt tired, every time she felt a flash of anger, she didn't just feel guilty. She felt she was damning her children's souls. This belief system turned motherhood from a joy into a high-stakes spiritual terror. There is one chilling detail from the case files that has always stayed with me. Among the materials the Yateses owned was a pamphlet from Michael Woroniecki containing a stark, disturbing illustration. A mother labeled a Jezebel, casting her children into a river as an act of spiritual destruction. For years, Andrea saw that image again and again. As her mental illness deepened and delusions took hold, the symbolic river in that drawing slowly transformed in her broken mind into the actual bathtub in their home. It wasn't merely a pamphlet, it became an unspoken blueprint that her psychosis followed to its tragic end. In 1996, chasing a life of simplicity and religious purity, Rusty decided to sell their home. He moved the family, which was growing rapidly, into a travel trailer and later a 350-square-foot renovated bus. Andrea was homeschooling them. She was washing clothes by hand in buckets because modern conveniences were frowned upon by the Woroniecki theology. She was changing diapers 24/7. She had no privacy, no silence, no identity outside of mother and servant. In 1997, amidst this chaos, she suffered a miscarriage, a trauma she barely had time to process before she was pregnant again. Andrea washed diapers by hand in buckets, rejecting disposable ones as modern conveniences, condemned by Woroniecki's teachings. She was cut off from her nursing friends, her old support network vanishing into the bus's metal walls. The family embraced a return to basics, shunning materialism for spiritual purity, but at what cost? This isolation turned Andrea's world inward, amplifying every cry, every demand with no escape valve. Essentially, Andrea was trapped in a form of solitary confinement, surrounded not by silence, but by the relentless demands of toddlers. She was overwhelmed by motherhood long before her tragic actions unfolded. The human mind is resilient, but it is not unbreakable. In 1999, after the birth of her fourth son, Luke, the dam finally burst. It started with shaking. Andrea couldn't hold a spoon. She was biting her fingers' nervous tics that escalated into catatonia. She would stand in one spot for hours. June 17, 1999. Rusty found her shaking violently. The next day, in a moment of utter despair, she deliberately took a massive overdose of trazodone pills from her father's medicine cabinet in an attempt to end her own life. These weren't her first terrifying thoughts. After Luke's birth, she had been tormented by intrusive visions of harming her children. Rather than ever let that happen, she turned the danger inward, choosing to end her own life as the ultimate act of protecting her babies. Rusty rushed her to the hospital, but the warning signs were now impossible to ignore.
And there was one psychiatrist who saw her who told her and Rusty, "Don't have any more children. You need to stop. If you have more and more children, the risk that you're going to have more of these episodes is higher. And with the psychotic episodes, they tend to get worse."
This reveals the depth of her torment, not selfishness, but a mother's fractured instinct to shield her family from herself. She survived. When she woke up in the hospital, she told the doctors something that should have been the loudest alarm bell in history. She said she wanted to sleep forever so she wouldn't hurt anyone. This is the first clinical sign of altruistic delusion. She was already beginning to view her very existence as a threat to her family. She believed she was failing them so badly that her death would be a relief to them. Meanwhile, her husband acted like he knew nothing about his wife's condition.
You know, I had no idea what was going on. I mean, I didn't know anything about mental illness or postpartum depression or psychosis or anything.
She was hospitalized at the Methodist Hospital Psychiatric Unit. She was diagnosed with postpartum psychosis. Doctors put her on Haldol. Remember that name? Haldol. It is a powerful antipsychotic. And it worked. It was like magic. The fog lifted. Andrea returned. She was swimming again, smiling again. She was Andrea again. But then, Dr. Eileen Starbranch, her psychiatrist, sat Rusty and Andrea down. She pointed to Andrea's medical chart and said, "Do not have any more children." She explained that another pregnancy would almost certainly trigger another psychotic episode, and next time the medicine might not work. Next time it would be worse. So why? Why did they ignore this? Rusty later explained his reasoning in interviews, and it is chilling in its simplicity.
You know, the decision to have more children in 2001 was based on information we got from the doctor because we'd successfully treated it in '99. If it happened again, we knew how to treat it now.
He said they decided to have another child because the medicine worked in 1999. He viewed her psychosis not as a chronic, life-threatening condition, but as a mechanical glitch. Andrea was dragged back into the reproductive cycle, not by force, but by a shared delusion that faith and medicine could simply patch her up. They stopped the contraception. They stopped the Haldol because it wasn't safe for pregnancy. And in November 2000, baby Mary was born. The clock started ticking. The descent was rapid and terrifying. In March 2001, a second blow, Andrea's father, Andrew Kennedy, died. The grief compounded the hormonal storm. She stopped eating. She stopped drinking. She began pickling a term Rusty used to describe her aimless pacing. She would walk in circles for hours staring at walls holding baby Mary, but looking right through her. She began scratching her scalp obsessively sometimes until it bled. Why the scalp? She told doctors she was looking for the mark, the number 666. She believed the devil had physically branded her. She was seeing things, hearing things. She believed there were cameras in the walls monitoring her incompetence. The warnings escalated. One afternoon around 4 p.m., Dora Yates, Rusty's mother, who had flown in to help, found Andrea filling the bathtub to the brim with cold water. "Why are you doing this?" Dora asked, alarmed. Andrea's vague reply, "I might need it." This cryptic act terrified Dora, leading to Andrea's rehospitalization at Devereaux within 24 hours. Dora saw the red flags Rusty missed. She begged him, "She's not right." But even after discharge, the system failed again, prescribing antidepressants that fueled her agitation like gasoline on a delusional fire. Her delusions became specific and horrific. Andrea was rehospitalized at Devereaux on March 31, 2001. Despite her psychotic history, despite being catatonic and practically mute, the doctors took her off Haldol and put her on antidepressants Effexor. It increases agitation. It gives the patient the energy to act on their delusions without the clarity to stop them. Rusty told the doctors she was getting worse, comparing her to a zombie. The doctor's response: "Andrea, think happy thoughts. Think happy thoughts." To a woman who believes she is the Antichrist, combined with stopping Haldol for pregnancy, created a perfect storm. She was discharged in May, sent home to a house with 5 children under 7. Rusty's mother Dora came to help. Dora saw the danger and told Rusty she isn't right. But Dora couldn't stay forever. When she left, the safety net was gone. Tuesday morning, June 20th. Rusty left for work at 9:00 a.m. His mother was scheduled to arrive at 10:00 a.m. 1 hour of solitude. 1 hour of silence. Andrea finished feeding the kids, put a bowl of cereal on the table, then went to the bathroom and turned on the tap. She didn't fill the tub with warm, bubbly water. She filled it to the brim with cold, heavy water. What happened next is almost impossible to comprehend, but we have to face it because she couldn't escape it. She began with the younger boys, Paul, Luke, and John, calling them into the bathroom one by one. The children trusted their mother completely, and then in confusion and fear, they tried to fight back. But Andrea, driven by an overwhelming psychotic conviction, did not let go. Afterward, she carried their small, limp bodies to the bedroom and gently placed them on the bed, covering them with a sheet. In her shattered mind, she was simply tucking them in for the very last time. She left baby Mary in the tub, motionless in the water. Then came the moment that breaks every heart who knows this story. Her eldest son, Noah, only 7 years old, he wandered into the bathroom and saw his little sister floating face down. He saw the emptiness in his mother's eyes, a hollow, vacant stare that Rusty would later call void. Noah's voice trembled. "What's wrong with Mary?" And then, instinct took over. He bolted, heart-pounding, trying to flee from the mother he once trusted completely. Andrea followed her delusion, unyielding. She caught him in the hallway. Noah, bigger and stronger than the others, resisted with all his might in a desperate, heartbreaking struggle. In that chaos, as she submerged him, his final plea echoed, "Mommy, I'll be good. I'll be good." In his final seconds, Noah thought he was being punished for behavior. He thought if he promised to good, she would let him breathe. He didn't understand that to Andrea, taking his life was the only way to make him good. In her psychosis, she wasn't ending their lives. She was saving them. She believed that if they lived, they would grow up to be sinners destined for hell. By ending their lives while they were still innocent, she was sending them straight to heaven. She believed she was the only thing standing between her children and eternal damnation. She was sacrificing her soul. She knew she would go to hell for murder to ensure their eternal salvation. It was in her twisted, broken logic the ultimate act of motherly love. A sacrifice of self for the child.
Andrea, hello?
You need to come home.
What's going on?
You need to come home. It's time. I did it.
What did you do?
It's the
Andrea, what are you talking about?
It's the children.
Which one?
All of them.
She called 911. Police officer David Knapp was the first on the scene. He entered the house expecting a domestic dispute. He walked down the hallway. He looked into the bedroom and saw a small, wet head on the bed. In his own words, he later said, "I thought it was a doll." He walked over and touched it. It was cold. It was then he realized the horror of what he was seeing. This veteran officer, trained for everything, felt his training evaporate in the face of such unnatural tragedy. Knapp found Andrea sitting on the couch, wet, staring at the wall. She wasn't crying, she wasn't shaking. She was just empty. They found Noah, the eldest, still in the bathtub, his body the last to be discovered. As they led Andrea away, the media swarm had already begun, instantly turning her into a celebrity of horror. Then Rusty arrived. The scene described by witnesses is heart-wrenching. Rusty fell to the grass, screaming, rolling on the ground. But his words to Andrea, when he saw her being led away in handcuffs, were the smoking gun of this tragedy. He didn't ask why. He didn't say, "How could you?" He looked at her and yelled, "You finally did it. You finally did it." The public turned on Andrea immediately. She was the monster mom. But a secondary wave of fury was directed at Rusty. He didn't hide. He went on TV almost immediately. He spoke calmly. He showed a slideshow of the kids at the funeral. People called him a narcissist. They blamed him. He knew she was sick and he knocked her up anyway. He left her alone. He cared more about his dogma than his wife's life. But was he a villain? Or was he just a man blinded by his own rigid worldview? He believed that the husband is the head of the household, that prayer heals, and that doctors are secondary to God. He wasn't malicious. He was dangerously ignorant. And unfortunately, ignorance can be just as deadly as malice. He truly believed they could outsmart the mental illness with faith. He lost that bet, and the price was his entire family. The trial began in 2002. The state of Texas, known for its eye for an eye justice, sought the death penalty. District Attorney Joe Omby argued that Andrea was angry, resentful of her trapped life, and killed the children as an act of revenge against Rusty. The defense, led by George Parnham and Wendell Odom, argued not guilty by reason of insanity. They argued she didn't know right from wrong because she thought she was battling Satan. The prosecution argued that because Andrea called 911, she knew it was illegal, and therefore she knew it was wrong. The defense argued that she knew it was illegal, but in her delusional mind, she thought it was morally right to save their souls. This distinction, legal wrong versus moral right, was the battlefield. In March 2002, Andrea Yates was found guilty. The jury rejected the death penalty, sentencing her to life in prison. But here is the twist that makes your blood run cold. After the verdict, a writer named Suzanne O'Malley, who had actually written scripts for Law & Order, was covering the case. The defense team pounced. They filed an appeal. It was a long, agonizing battle. But in 2005, the conviction was overturned. Andrea Yates would get a new trial. 2006. The second trial. The world had changed. Women were speaking up. This time, without the false Law & Order testimony, the jury saw the truth. They saw the medical records. They saw the tragedy of a woman failed by everyone around her. The jury deliberated for 3 days. At one point, they asked to see the photos of the children again. Not the crime scene photos, but the family photos. The jurors sat in silence. They took 2 minutes of silence for each child, 10 minutes of absolute stillness in the jury room. They wept. They weren't just judging a killer, they were mourning a family. Defense attorney noted the change from Monster Mom headlines to empathy for a biologic medical illness. Without Dietz's flawed testimony, the evidence of Andrea's psychosis, hallucinations, delusions finally prevailed. And the last verdict, not guilty by reason of insanity. Andrea was sent to Kerrville State Hospital, a low-security mental health facility. She remains there to this day. She declines her annual reviews for release. Why? Because she knows. Now that the medication works, now that the demons are gone, she has to live with the crystal clear memory of what she did. Imagine waking up every morning. You brush your teeth. You look at your hands in the mirror. And you remember that these are the hands that held your son down while he screamed, "I'll be good." That is her prison. It is a prison far worse than any cell the state of Texas could build. She spends her days making crafts, selling them to raise money for the Yates Children Memorial Fund. She makes aprons and cards, trying in her small, quiet way to put some good back into the world that she broke, and Rusty. He divorced Andrea in 2004. He went to law school. He remarried. He had another son. But the shadow remains. Rusty once admitted a heartbreaking detail about his grief. He said that for years, he wanted to send Andrea a postcard on the anniversary of the murders, a postcard of the children. He wanted to scream at her to remind her of what she took, but he never sent it. He realized, what does that solve? That doesn't do anything for me, and it certainly doesn't do anything for that woman. That woman. Not his wife, not the mother of his children, just that woman. He distinguished between forgiveness and consequences. He forgave her soul, but he could never again embrace the person who destroyed his world. Andrea Yates was not a monster hiding in the dark. She was a woman screaming for help in a room full of people, but no one spoke her language. She was failed by her husband, failed by her doctors, and failed by a society that idolizes the perfect mother myth, while ignoring the crushing reality of motherhood's darkest moments. Andrea's story urges society to destigmatize seeking help, turning personal tragedy into a catalyst for preventing future horrors. 5 children are gone. Their potential, their laughter, their futures erased in a bathtub on a Tuesday morning. If there is a lesson here, it is this. Listen. When a mother says she is drowning, don't tell her to think happy thoughts. Throw her a lifeline. Before she takes everyone else down with her, don't look away. If this story has made you rethink mental health and motherhood, drop a like below, subscribe for more deep dives into true crime, and share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think society could have done differently? Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.